Cheers everyone, Anderson here. This is Kill 10 Rats Plays Ironsworn, staring at you through the lens of a beautiful new camera I've added to my setup. So this is the inaugural shot. Hello, new piece of gear. But unfortunately, while recording for this session, I bumped into my light stand and now the footage from the new camera looks like I'm sitting in a nuclear reactor. I'll fix that for next time. The theme of today's episode is going to be pony because I'm a little hoarse. I have a bit of an asthma attack and things. I hope it doesn't impact things too badly. But if I do sound slightly out of breath, it is, of course, also the riveting action taking my breath away, but partly it's also the fact that I can't breathe very well today. And speaking of action, we do have quite an action-packed one for Kynan today as we find ourselves immersed on the verge of jumping into battle with the forces of nature striking back to support Asha's survival. And so I don't want to keep you any longer, but I am going to try to get away with asking you to like, comment, subscribe, ringing the bell of awakening for YouTube or whatever the thing's called, because it really does help. And without further didgeridoo, here's Chapter 2, Episode 8. Hunched in the doorway of a cramped Ironlander home in the town of Redcrest, Kynan watches the receding form of Saskia as she stomps off laughing into the din of the assaulting cloud of raging, insane wildlife flying around and dive bombing everyone still out and about in the open. And mixed in that screeching cacophony that gets louder and louder as the birds are acting more and more against their own survival instinct, just heatedly attacking anything now, even things that do not move. They just crash into houses, into walls, which actually makes it a little safer to step out there as they are now completely losing their minds. But in the midst of this horrendous din, a new sound enters the mix, a thudding sound, a constant crashing as more and more creatures from the forest throw themselves at the outer gates, at the outer walls, jump at the palisades, trying to get over. And as Kynan now steps out into this horrifying scenario, first he tries to locate among the now gathering defenders, some of which have come down that sloping path from the upper village, Morgan, his old ally, his current, still the person he's bonded to, that he knows in this town, and who is presumably organizing the defense. So he's looking at that group of torch-bearing guards that have come down and expecting Morgan to be in the lead there, or him being in the lead of one of the smaller groups that are currently marshalling some kind of U-shaped defense around the gate. The whole scene illuminated by flickering torchlight, making shadows dance unsettlingly on the palisades as the yips and barks and screams and screeches from the outside and the thuds against the outer walls get louder and louder. And it is pretty apparent now that this will not hold for a lot longer. And just as Kynan also spots Morgan in the center of that U, directing more incoming guards to set up a defensive line so that villagers with bows behind can stand there and have a better field of fire with a protective row of defenders in front of them. The whole defensive line set up between the rows of houses that sort of form the main entrance street into Redcrest. I'd say about 50 meters away from that thundering gate, that vibrating gate. And with Bas hot on his heels, Kynan joins Morgan, his own bow out, standing also in that back row because he's more competent archer than anything. Bas sort of pushing him aside with his mace, club-like mace, standing in front as Morgan shouts orders, and the gate is doomed by something that is throwing itself up and over the palisades, defiant of its own survival instinct. This disease just drives the creatures in its grasp to completely act against their own better interest. And Kynan watches with horror as two massive hands at the ends of very long arms appear, gripping into the jagged upper edge of the gate and pulling itself up. The enormous head of a troll coming into view, a forest troll covered in moss and lichen and just these weeds that look like hair. And before I describe this any further, let me actually look up the physical description of a troll in this book here. By the way, in case you're wondering why do I come up with a troll, it is kind of a extension of me wondering how are they going to actually break through this gate in a believable fashion. So I hit upon the idea of an infected forest troll that has the height and the strength and the length of arm to actually just, in defiance of own injuries, throw itself over that gate and pull the beam open again. So we have a troll, which is a formidable opponent in and of itself. Long limbs, sunken beady eyes, translucent skin camouflaged to the environment. So in this case we have more of a greenish tint, but a shimmer, very dark now in the night. A keen sense of smell, so as it throws itself over the gate and pulls itself up and impales its chest with the edges, with the tips of the upper edge of the gate, and reaches down with those long arms to rip open that cross beam holding the gate shut. It's sniffing and gibbering and exposing massive rows of teeth, and is definitely acting completely against its own mode of behavior, because they are generally sneakier and more reclusive. They don't really fight, but it's been driven completely insane by this rabied derivative that we've cooked up here. So yeah, the troll is the siege weapon. They brought a forest troll in the best tradition of the Lord of the Rings, and the troll is trying to get that gate open. I think at this point we have the engagement of entering the fray, and we represent, I think, this whole mess of attacking creatures, because now the creatures below, all the wild cats and wolves and deer and badgers and whatever else has been driven crazy, foaming at the mouth. They're using this troll as a kind of a bridge up into town. They're kind of jumping on its back and leaping over. So now there's even before the gates open, there is a flood of wildlife now coming into view. So let us enter the fray. And I think we represent this whole battle as a single progress track. We make it formidable, I think. Call it the Battle of Redcrest. Why formidable? Because we have a lot of opponents, but we also have a lot of firepower. We might actually, after we fight this out and represent sort of our own interaction, our own action in this combat, we might still roll a qualifying battle roll just to see how the overall defenders fared and see what toll it took on the village. So maybe later we make a battle move, but for now we treat this as a combat, not a scene challenge, just a combat. And the first order of business would probably be to try and stop this troll from ripping open the gate, which I do have decided is not going to succeed. It's just going to jump into view, impale itself there, reach down, rip open that cross beam, and even as the arrows come flying and find it, even if it gets killed doing that, it'll have succeeded its siege engine purpose. So let us enter the fray with with heart. We are facing off against our foe, so we do this with heart. It's a weak hit, so we can either bolster our position, take 2 momentum, or prepare to act, take initiative. I think we are in a position where we have to act. We have to unleash a volley in the vain hope of somehow stopping this creature from achieving its purpose, which means we are going to strike and unleash I'm picturing Kynan reaching behind to the quiver on his back, on his hip, pulling out a fistful of arrows and knocking them and just letting fly a bunch in short succession. And we are trying to do some damage on that troll. We're attacking at range with edge. That means we score a weak hit that inflicts our harm and we lose the initiative. So we have 1 progress here and we lose the initiative. That probably means that the arrows strike true. Kynan hits the troll in 3 places with his singular volley, shooting an eye out, hitting in the neck and the upper shoulder, and just more arrows coming in from the other combatants as the troll just gets peppered and groans and roars and still manages to tear that crossbeam away, and with its body weight even just pushing that gate open. And as soon as that gate is open, the floodgates just break. Kynan catches a glimpse of that bull moose lying on its back, limbs twitching, neck broken as it crashed into the gate, just mindlessly trying to budge it open. But there's just a wall of fur and claws and the occasional human rushing forward. These possessed, salivating, screeching victims, these lumberjacks from the lumber camp that Redcrest maintains that hasn't been evacuated yet. And so losing the initiative, that onrush puts the defenders on the back foot. They have to change their approach. I think Kynan has to decide, does he want to fall back and keep shooting? Does he want to pull his sword out? Or how does he want to meet this? But overall, the Redcrest guards as well, bringing up their shields, Morgan shouting, "Brace!" And the first clash of nature versus civilization happens. And lest we forget, there's still all these birds flying around, but as described earlier, they are sort of wearing themselves out. The cloud is thinning because the frenzied swarm has just worn itself out against stationary objects, just crashed into houses and walls and everything. So there's also a ton of just dead birds lying everywhere. And so I think we are going to clash. We are going to clash here. And I think Kynan is shooting on an advancing foe, so he still has the wherewithal to react before the gap is completely closed. He's a competent archer. He also is comfortable shooting at close range, so he grabs another fistful of arrows and lets them fly. And that appears to be a miss, which means on a miss you are outmatched and must pay the price. Your foe has initiative, so we are paying the price. How are we paying the price? We could just take damage, or we could roll on the table. I think there are so many moving parts here that I'd like to roll on the table. 53, it causes a delay or puts you at a disadvantage. That reads like a momentum loss to me. How much are we losing generally with the health and spirit and supply tracks in this formidable encounter? We would lose 3, I think. Losing 3 momentum seems a bit harsh, but oh well, there we go. So we're down to +3 momentum, which is not great. How do we picture this? What does happen? How does it delay, or how is it a setback and puts us on the back foot? I think the most likely explanation is that as Kynan fires and brings up his arm to brace against a flying, say there was a fox in front just running at him and teeth gnashing and howling, and while Kynan manages to keep harm away from himself, he brings up his arm that holds the bow, and the fox crashes into it and snaps the bow. So we have to resort to pulling the sword out and fighting a close combat now. And now there's a whole mess of an engagement happening as the archers among the villagers fall back and try to gain some sort of high ground. They recede to the sides and go up these sloped roofs, these triangular houses, just getting to a position where they can fire into the mass as this U-shape tries to hold, but the pressure is immense as just a whole forest worth of mixed creatures rushes at them, probably with another troll coming in from behind, forming a centerpiece that jumps up and down and screams. So now Kynan shoulders in beside Bas and Morgan and just starts hacking away with his sword. I think we are going to clash again because we need to inflict some damage to outpace this, and we have well, pretty good combat stats. Kynan is a very competent fighter, so let's give it a go. That's a 4-7 versus a 6+3. That is a strong hit. On a strong hit, inflict your harm and choose one. You have the initiative. So we inflict our harm. That puts us up to 2 harm. And we can either take momentum or inflict additional harm. I think I want to inflict additional harm here because I find that quite... Well, momentum is all well and good, but this is a pitched battle that is very... it just feels appropriate that Kynan would go all out now and just hack and fight with intensity. So as he steps forward and shoves his sword out, we picture him shoving it into the chest of a wolf mid-flight as it tries to just tear his throat out and ripping the blade free again, striking down to get at another enraged creature trying to make its way through his legs and bringing up in an arc again, cutting the head of a deer or tearing the throat of a deer open, probably not cutting the head off in one swing. But just in general, being a whirlwind of destruction. And we have regained the initiative, which means what exactly? Hang on, my eyes are getting terrible, so I have some reading glasses now. We can now roll with plus iron because we are in close combat. So we will do that. That is another strong hit, which means we also inflict +1 harm again, putting us up to 5. And the whirlwind of destruction continues as now the troll makes its way to the front, sweeping long arms, taking just ripping a gap into the front line of the villagers to Kynan's right, with 2 or 3 of the guards, two sent flying, 1 going down, and Kynan stepping in there and shoving his blade into the armpit of the troll as the arm sweeps back up and is just standing on 1 knuckle and 2 hind feet, roaring in pain, ripping it out again. Bas comes in with his mace, clubbing the troll into the face. Mace to the face, perfect. And we have retained the initiative, so we can also strike again if we want to. Do we want to secure an advantage? I don't think so, because we don't have much in the way of setup we can do now. This is much too pitched of a battle, and I don't think Kynan wants to withdraw now. He wants to finish that troll off, so let's do that with Bas's help, and maybe also with the help of the village guard as he brings himself up to his feet, and one of the other guards who was sent flying, rushing forward, her own shield up, spear in hand, and stabbing at that troll as the 4 of them together try to bring that enormous creature down. Strike again. Weak hit. So we inflict our harm and lose the initiative. 6 progress. Lose the initiative. The troll collapses, and 1 death flail, the arm reaching out, just drives another wedge into the defenders. The collapsing troll half landing on Kynan, who has to drop and roll out of the way, finding himself on the ground with an elk jumping over him and the hoof just treading into his thigh, and struggling back to his feet. He just brings the sword up and hacks blindly. We call it a clash again, I think, and see how it goes. It goes! We have an opening to inflict 1 more harm. We do that, of course. Kynan coming to his knees, sword again dancing the dance of death and cutting a swath of damage through the onrushing creatures. One of the infected villagers, lumberjacks, reaching out, coming for Kynan, hands already on Kynan's shoulders as he pushes himself up to his feet and just rams the sword from below through the throat and the back of the head, and with a last gurgle and a flying spittle in his face. There's actually a bit of an infection risk here, by the way. We haven't taken physical damage yet from this, which is probably a blessing, but I think, depending on how the disease works, Kynan may think he catches it. We'll leave that for later. Anyway, the infected lumberjack goes down with a gurgle. Kynan stands free, has the initiative, and roars as he strikes again. That is another weak hit. We inflict our harm and lose the initiative. We are up to 8. We lose the initiative because the battle has moved on to deeper in the village. Kynan's flank held, but the other fell. Some of the houses, some of the archers on top of the buildings have been dragged down and are being savaged. The flank on that side also collapsed, with a second row coming down from up above, down that slope, already trying to close the gap but being pushed back, and Kynan's now trying to do a flanking maneuver on these, into that pocket of attackers that is now coming forward, and trying at the same time not to have his own flank overrun. Morgan has already fallen back. Baz is still berserking happily around him, and we clash again. Oh god, we clash again, and we get clashed. We fought the law or the nature, and the nature won. Not quite, but we have to pay the price again. Let's roll on the pay the price table again. 81. A surprising development complicates your quest. A surprising development complicates your quest. That's probably the most interesting result of the pay the price table, but what would that be in this? I think we'll just ask the Oracle again. Which one? Are we going to ask the plot twists, or are we going to ask the regular Oracle? I think we're going to ask the major plot twist Oracle, because that sounds more fun. 80. Someone or something goes missing. Someone or something goes missing. Well, who could that be? I think I have an idea how to handle this, but we're gonna do that maybe after the combat. So we'll pay that price. It's not immediately apparent that this happened, but we will make that happen once the dust settles. I say that with perhaps unwarranted confidence, but in a way we are on the we're on good track here. We have how much? 7 progress, 8 progress now. So we have lost the initiative still. We can't end the fight. We still have to do one more clash, and clash we shall. So let's do that. You are absolutely joking. Okay. A 1 versus 2 10s. This is, in fact, a bit too tense, because that is... I think I just said we are on track to resolve this very quickly. I may have spoken too soon. So what happens here? Let me get some inspiration. What is something bad that could happen? I was looking through the list of creatures to see whether something springs to mind, but I think that's probably not the way to go here. Let's just do an action and theme for a start to see what the additional complication is, and then we pay the price separately. 21 leave, 14 duty, leave duty. Someone's deserting. Who might that be? Who's running away? Oh, that's even better. Okay, yeah, I will tie that with someone or something goes missing. Now 2 someones or something go missing. This is definitely on brand for that someone that I have in mind. We'll see that once the dust is settled. We have to pay the price again, though, because we really ate it on that roll. 81, a surprising development complicates your quest. Come on, what is happening? Another surprising development. So while we are fighting here, lots and lots of things are happening in the background. What could it be this time? How could we... Are we doing a plot twist again, or nah? Let's just go with the regular oracles now. Plot twist. I think it's we already had one, and it's a good one, and it tied into the major complication now with leaving duty. But let's see what the new surprising development is. 31 uncover. 62 family. Uncover family. That's how would that have a bearing? Well, it doesn't have a bearing on the combat. Let's think about this after. I'll make a note, and then we can maybe continue with the fight here, and hopefully we roll a little less garbage this time around. So we 3 times the charm, clash again. Yes! Okay, we have a strong hit here. We can find an opening. I think we want to make absolutely sure that we, now that we regain the initiative, can also end this fight. So the flanking maneuver as Baz wheels around and joins Kynan, and they fall into the flank of that pocket that has broken through the defenses, meeting that row of guards rushing down from the upper village. That actually drives a wedge between the attacking creatures and cuts that force that has broken through off. Attacked from several sides, they fall quickly. The guards push forward, Kynan in front, rushing, hacking, and that momentum carrying forward as now the closed front of the villagers drives the creatures back, and we try to end the fight. We end the fight. So the foe is no longer in the fight. I think with the logic of this disease, we can't expect the onslaught to stop. So what is more likely is that as the villagers manage to close in and drive back the onrush, they manage to get a group of villagers having approached from either side of the wall, circle around, manages to get that gate closed again, put that crossbeam in place again. The creatures cut off now on the inside are quickly cut down. The ones on the outside are now also in that frenzy, but they no longer have their siege weapons, so all they can do is horrendously just killing themselves against the palisades, or impaling themselves on top of the palisades in sort of frenzied leaps as they try to make it over. Some of them even maybe succeeding, but falling to their death on the other side, just landing awkwardly. There's a whole just panorama of shattered, yelping, screaming forest creatures and people lying around just in the death throes and out of action. And maybe now we should figure out how we uncover family. Honestly, when I think of the theme family, I think of Asha and I think of Eren, because that is the familial connection we have. So what do we know about them, and what we don't know who Asha's father is. We don't know anything about Asha really, but if we want to uncover family, and that is a meaningful and surprising turn, maybe we can make that a thing. So Uncover Family is about Asha's father. Let me run through this. Things that we know. Eren was from that old village that fell to the Firstborn originally when this disease came up, and then the Firstborn wiped that village out. Eren is still connected to the forest, treats that with some reverence, with almost a religious reverence, is therefore suspect and an outcast among Redcrests, mistrusted. She's a useful outcast. She's a herbalist. She's a kind of a local healer or witch or wise woman, whatever brand of, well, positive or negative connotation you want to throw at her. And maybe Asha's... Let's give a 50-50 chance to the question, is Asha's father one of the Firstborn, or rumored to be one of the Firstborn, and actually is one of the Firstborn? Maybe the Uncover Family that Morgan will eventually share with Kynan is that there's always been a rumor that Asha's father is one of the Firstborn, and what the die roll is going to determine is whether it's true. So 51 plus, Asha is technically a half-elf. Oh yes, okay. That makes for an interesting development. So I'm still dancing around the culpability issue here. I don't really want to now decide whether or not Eren or Asha are in fact involved in this nature striking back disease scenario. It's likely. I don't want to roll for it now because I want to leave that open to the ebb and flow of the dice as we get closer. But I think it would be interesting if Asha's father, having been a Firstborn, has at least something to do, especially since they're very long-lived, with the disease and with the fall of Eren's old village. Maybe it's some kind of amplified case of your Ironlander equivalent of Stockholm syndrome, or something like that, or a charm person effect, or whatever happened there. I think that takes too much agency away from. Let's not go to charm. Let's not go against Aaron's will with that. It might be maybe Aaron just came around to the firstborn's point of view in that we really don't have a business here, and contributed to the fall of the first village somehow. It's a possibility if we decide that Aaron is quote unquote the baddie here and in league with them and has something to do with it. That could be an option, but let's just keep in mind that Asha's father very likely has some connection to this whole firstborn retaliation against the Ironlanders, and that love falls in weird places. So we'll leave it at that for now. We just note down that Asha's father is in fact an elf, and maybe we also go with the sort of canonical interpretation that this is a thing where the half-elven nature doesn't manifest in too many physical identifiers, so no pointed ears or extremely slight stature like the classic fantasy tropes, otherwise it would be a bit too obvious with Asha being a half-elf, but to have her look just enough on the verge that it could be either. So there's always this rumor, has always been this rumor in the village that she's one of them, and her mother is this weird, creepy witch who goes in the forest for weeks at a time and is probably in league with them, even though they killed all her family. That could be a thing. So let's keep that in mind, and let's have the dust settle. Kynan leaning on his sword, breathing heavily, Baz wiping his blood-covered bald pate, Morgan still organizing, now the aftermath of the battle with villagers coming by the houses, tending to the wounded, making sure that the bodies are cleared out. Immediately a huge bonfire is set up so the bodies can be burned. Everyone is scared of infection. It's an odd atmosphere. While the battle is won, the villagers are very concerned with having had this infected rabble of creatures come this close, and no doubt fearing now that there's just going to be an explosion of villagers and townsfolk that will be falling ill with symptoms of this disease, and maybe so is Kynan now. He's got that spittle of that wolf still in his face, and some scratch marks, and definitely some scratch marks from those birds. He only took some damage there, so I tell a lie. He did not take damage. He just didn't take it in this session. So as the dust settles, Kynan remembers Saskia's plan and opportunity taking of using all this distraction to make her way and find Asha and free her. So with Morgan still occupied and Baz now walking off to tend to his wounded, Kynan goes off and heads on over to that tunnel, to that corridor that's been dug into the mountainside, into the hillside rather, into that rock face of the hill, steep drop under the longhouse, and he goes there, pushes open the door, sees the splayed body of Bevis the guard lying in the corridor, breathing but definitely knocked out, probably Saskia's work. He goes and looks into the various rooms, sees the storage room, sees the cell in which he was kept, and further down the corridor an open door where the voice came from when he called out to Asha, and he opens it up and it's empty, and there is there's some manacles, there's a chain to the wall broken open, and the cell is empty because someone or something went missing and someone left their duty, which means that Saskia and Asha have, well, to put it drastically, they've fucked off. So we don't know where they went so far. I think we just know that they went. I think I might have a few ideas where they might have gone, but I think we might leave that for next time. So I thank you very much for watching. I'll catch you next time, and bye for now.